Welcome back. This is the second half of our interview with Lak Loi. Picking up right where we left off. Remember where we were, Dennis?
Where were we?
We were right there where we just left off.
Well, that is the beginning. Remember, Vicente always said, "Remember, go back to the beginning."
Go back to the beginning. All right. And if you guys can't find anything else, you can watch that movie.
Ooh, trivia. Which one is that?
Indeed. Well, enjoy and have a nice one.
And we bought seafood tacket over every year since that. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, it was in 2008 when seafood tacket first came. 2000 and oh dear, I can't. You know what? It's a bit of a blur. Can't be 2008 because 2008 we had the Bruce Lee Foundation come, so it must have been before that. So it must have been 2007. Must have been 2007. So the first year he came, and so Gotland became the representative, and then the year after that, I got my first certification under seafood tacket. I think in 2009 when I hosted him for the first time, and I'd already had my school up and running in 2007. So I remember going up to the Midlands to train at that seminar, which was held on a Wednesday, so it was midweek, which is a bit odd, but we ended up training midweek for a day, for an evening, and that was the first time we'd seen him, and he recognized the potential in Gotland at the time, and yeah, the rest, it just went from there. So the following year, the following year, I was working hard towards getting recognized myself, and I think the next year I didn't get certified under tacket because he picked up on some preparation on a hammer principle. So I was like, damn it, I was so upset. I was like, oh, do you know what? I want to go work this every day, man. So for the next year, following year, I made sure I had that hammer principle down, because I was like, I really wanted to be affiliated and under seafood tacket's tutelage. And the following year when he came, we hosted him, and he tested me, and that was the year he gave it to me in front of all my students, and that was amazing. And that was when I was officially, kind of inaugurated as one of the Wednesday night group.
So I have to ask. I mean, this is, how do I ask? The Wednesday night group. There was something, and we've talked about this in our first podcast, Dennis and I. But there was something very special, and I'm not saying this about myself, or I'll include Dennis in it. But when I came to the group, I was just a beginner, obviously. So, but there was something very special about it, and it was all of these instructors. There was so many. There was first generation. Even Bob Bremer's son would come by once in a while, who actually had more. Dennis, didn't he have more recorded class time than many famous names in Bruce's class?
Yeah.
So and he would pop in, and there's just, so even the fact, you're mentioning the hammer principle. I won't name who, but there's well-known people that would say, oh, it's not bad, but it just takes too long to get good at.
Yeah.
And I find that, considering Bruce Lee's focus on excellence, it was an odd thing for me to hear that somebody would say, well, if you can't get it right away, it's not worth anything. But that was something that came from Bob, and then Tim Tackett knew that Bob had so much, one that he had worked with, but it shows the character of Tim too, that he didn't say, well, this is my class, I don't want him showing that I don't know something, or that he has something I don't have. He would say, blurt it out. Right. So we had the dynamic of Dennis kicking us all through walls when we got there, and Bob.
Not true.
Well, there was a few walls still standing. How does this turn into a question? So how did you, so it seems I'm asking, I guess, that it seems that you recognized something different when the Wednesday night group became part of your existence. That was what I guess I'm asking you.
Oh man, I want to swear, but hell yeah. You know, when what happened, I think in 2009 we came over to the States for our first ever US camp, and it was in New Jersey, if I'm not mistaken, at Patrick's place.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cunningham.
Yeah, Cunningham's place. Yeah, Patrick
Okay.
Cunningham's place. And Vince was, obviously up the road. And I remember, that was the first one that we did. And do you know that, like, I think it was just the attitude, you know, one thing I loved about Steve Tackett, he loved the fact that he found a lot of joy when his instructors could really hit hard, you know, and he really loved that, and it made him happy, and if you could hit hard, you could make him happy, and we were making him happy, and it was kind of egged you on, right? So that was one of the things. There's so many things. Then you've got this whole community of instructors predominantly, but then also some of their students that could make it as well. And these seminars, had 60 to 80 people in them, right? So, and I might be on the conservative side there, probably a lot more on the first day. And they could all do it, Obviously, there's some that are, a bit less experienced, but I was just mesmerized by all of the different characters as well. And everyone had something to give. And there were so many different teachers. So everyone came in and had a little different, something different to show, their own, specialty within the JKD space. So Vince would come on and he'd do his footwork and his kicking, and then Tack would come on and then he would do his show his journey in the process, and eventually lead up to the hammer principle and the story, and then the stories, right? And I'm missing a whole bunch of people out here, but so forgive me if I'm not trying to list all the names down because there's so many. And then there was all these stories, first-hand experiences with uh, Dan Inosanto, and then you get the stories that Dan was sharing through with Bruce. So you're as close as you're gonna get to Bruce now that he's gone, and I just felt this closeness to him as well, and I thought, wow, you can't really get closer than this. Even though I started in a Ted Wong affiliated school and I had the chance to go to a Ted Wong seminar, which I didn't because I didn't know who he was. And I didn't know who he was, right? And like I said, remember, I was a complete novice in this space. I didn't know any of the names. So people are dropping these names, and I was like, who's that? Who's that? Who's that? And I just felt like an idiot, but as I say, no question, stupid question. You have to ask the question in order to learn. And I started to learn about all the people and the lineage and how the teachings were evolved over time. And I started to get this rich history, really rich history. Bob Bremer spending 2 years at the LA Chinatown School, nearly 1,000 or over 1,000 hours with privates with Bruce directly in his backyard, and Steve Tackett training under Dan. You guys having the fortune to train with Tackett for so many years. That's just a name. Some of them, Jim Sewell, I never really got to meet. Bless him. But so many amazing stories about him. And then you've got Bert Poe, stories about Bert Poe and Sonny Bigham. And I know I'm missing another gentleman out. Who's the third one?
I think again.
Ding, 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 ding. Dun,
No, you can fill in, Dennis. You can fill in.
It was Dennis.
And it's Dennis. and then meeting you guys over time. And you know what? It's just absolutely amazing. And every time I came back from these American seminars, it was a kind of a complete mind shift every single time in my own JKD practice, in my own JKD game, in my own JKD teachings. And it, you know, the excitement behind it all, I can't explain. And still to this day, I have that love for you guys. You know that.
Oh yeah.
And that excitement, you know, and we feel that, you know, that's why we try and make the events as exciting and as special, and we try and do, things to, make those moments memorable as much as we possibly can, because we've met some amazing people along the way, and some of them people are still on that journey, and some of them are not on the journey, some of them are no longer with us on Mother Earth, bless them. So as a consequence, it's there's there's just so much more that words can describe why I was completely mesmerized by the Wednesday night group, because I think for the first time, outside of the schools that I trained in, I found a community of a brotherhood where everyone shared the art, and it was beyond a passion. It was an obsession, all right? Just a bit like myself. And I think everybody was doing it for the same reason, to be better at the art initially. But over time, I started realizing I was becoming a better person because of learning and practicing the art. And as a consequence, that started to seep into my student base. You can't positively affect every single student. There's always going to be outliers, but for the majority case, that became the case. And and it's just something that has become a family over time. And it's, having hosted seminars with luminaries like Sifu Tim Tackett, Sifu Dennis Blue, Sifu Jeremy Lynch, right? We try and perpetuate what we have, and the global family that we've created, and I'm lucky to be called part of that family. And yeah, long may it live, really.
Amen.
Beyond our years,
Well, the one thing I love about this group and connecting with you and your family there, your JKD family, of course, and your family, your actual family, um, is that we do have different backgrounds, and we still may even have some different teaching processes and things, but the fact is that you're open to continue to train and to look at what we have, and we like to look at what you have and our other brothers and affiliates and members of the JKD family. We love to see what you're doing, and we love to see how you're teaching. So this, even though everything isn't always a carbon copy of exactly what you know each group is doing, I think that's the way we're still able to experiment and grow, and then when we come together, we can see like, okay, what have you been working on, and you can see, because I don't think that Dennis is probably not teaching exactly the way, Dennis, that you taught 30 years ago. Are you teaching everything exactly the same?
Boring, isn't it?
Yeah, can you remember?
No, 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 no. I would have to say my teaching has evolved just because, I've learned that I have to accommodate, other learning styles. And then also, with the changes just in the martial arts industry and community, you have to adapt to that as well because, a lot of things, these trends start transpiring and you have to learn this new language to communicate with these people, and which is probably why to most people I'm kind of ancient in with the way I teach because it's very Spartan. But so to answer your question,
But
yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
that's the beauty in it, right? That's one of the things that I found such beauty in, is that everyone had a very unique signature in the way they they teach, their modus operandi, so to
Hmm.
speak. And that made, I mean, you could teach the same thing somebody else is taught, but using that your own flavor, using your own signature,
Mm,
and it would just make it equally as interesting as if it was the first time you ever seen it.
right.
And I
Yeah.
think, and I think that is really, I think, an indescribable feeling where you can't get enough of it, really.
Yeah, if you think about it, it's kind of like food. It's like a dish. You've
Yeah,
tasted it at this restaurant and it was really good. But you go into another restaurant, the guy did a little bit different. It was good, not the same, but it's still good. So
yeah.
that prompts me to want, you know what? I wonder what that guy over there, how he makes his food taste compared to this guy, and it's the same dish. So I think I'm hungry, but that's why I said
Yeah.
that.
You're thinking about food.
That's true though, and we're all dishes. Yeah, but yeah, that's the thing. It's like coming together. Every time we come together as a group, it's a new experience in a sense. And of course, besides the fact that we get new students and you get new students, but just seeing how our teaching is evolving, um, but still with the same. That's the other thing. If we were just all coming in, well, let's see what else we can do. That's not what it is. If we still have the same goal, we still have the same scientific foundation that Bruce Lee laid out. And because we were definitely considered, and we still probably are considered what people would call the original JKD group. There's the concept side of things, and there's the original side of things. You get a lot of, back in the day especially, you get a lot of kind of friction between, oh, which side are you on? But I think there's a misconception about, and we never titled ourselves, by the way. The original, we were just, because of the being part with the Bruce Lee Foundation and the nucleus and all that, we were trying to preserve Bruce Lee's original teachings, notes, things like that. But also, there's a scientific foundation, and if you don't really change the rules of science. You might change your experiments, right?
Yeah.
And that's fine. But we all have the same foundation, and we still abide, hopefully, by the same rules. What's the most direct? What's
Yeah.
the most, but um I'm looking whitewashed. How's that? Sorry. My face is looking very, very pale here. But that's me. That's my scientific endeavor. I'm working with my lighting. Anyway, uh, but yeah, so we're working towards that, and I think as long as we do that, that's what keeps JKD. JKD can stay fresh. It doesn't have to be, let's start teaching another martial art and call it JKD, which is where I think some people have gone wrong. It's like, well, I like this martial art and I think it has some good stuff in it, so we'll call it part of JKD. And one, I don't think other arts appreciate that. It's like
Yeah.
if I go off and learn a screama from somebody and teach their system, and I go, this is JKD.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're kind of like, hey, that's my family system. What do no, it's JKD because I like some of your techniques.
I like that. I like what you just said there. That's my family system. Because it actually harks back to the the ancient, Chinese way, right? Is that the families used to preserve their martial art for themselves and try not to let it leak out.
Yeah.
And if anybody just tries to rip it off or defame it in some way, or even discredit it by labeling your art as their art in some way, shape, or form, because maybe your art is more popular than their art, it wasn't allowed. And they'd fight to the death
Hmm.
to preserve the honor.
Yeah.
Jeremy, I think you should make a movie about this.
Well, let's do it.
Dun, dun,
I've
dun,
got I've
dun.
got another year and a half left for doing this kind of thing. you know, but yeah, exactly. It's like the thing is that back in the day, Bruce Lee was grabbing things, and he would learn stuff, learn and he might look at an art and then he would take one or two things out of it. But even then, I think we've gotten in the habit of, if we grab something nowadays from another art, we'll just say that we got it from Thai boxing or
Yeah,
something,
not only that, but Chris brought it up, and it is something that Dan used to say a lot. Can you hear me? Because it's not there. It is. Okay. Yeah. But finding that common thread, and
Yes.
that's one of the things I've always looked at. Like when I teach some of my courses, classes, like I can take like something from Filipino martial arts and I can take something from Wing Chun and make the comparison, like Luso, the rolling hands in Wing Chun is very similar to the Filipino martial art hubad. If you really look at the way it's supposed to be taught, so there is that, and again, it's finding that common thread. It's not so much trying to add something from another system, but trying to find the uniqueness of whatever that particular method or technique is to see if it fits into your little melting pot so that when you pour that out into your mold, does this fit what you're trying to achieve? Is it good for me? Well, it might not be good for me, but this guy, it might work for him. So there is that common thread with that. So yeah, whatever I was saying, yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned Chris actually, because we've hosted Chris a few times as well over in the UK as well. And again, it just that was a bit of a bonus as well, in the sense that, we have Sifu Tackett from Dan's Backyard Group as one of the senior first ranking instructors, most knowledgeable practitioners. And then you have Chris Kent, who was the youngest group, joined that group when he was 17, if I'm not mistaken,
Right.
as the youngest member of that group, who, is, one of the last few remaining from that Backyard Group era. And yeah, it's an honor to be following on in his footsteps, even on this podcast. As a
You're
guest, I
literally
follow
following
him.
him. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
And that's another thing too, is that, Chris teaches somewhat differently.
Yeah,
If you watch one of his seminars or classes, and I'm one, I'm looking forward to, I want to get back to train with him when I can. He doesn't live in California anymore. He hasn't for quite a while. Um, but again, but he still follows the same scientific foundation and mindset. And just listening to him talk, it was great. I could listen to him and Dennis go back and forth about the old
yeah.
days for forever, but it wasn't just that. It was taking the foundation, what they got from that time. And
Yeah.
Bruce was still around, he didn't get to meet him, but
Mm.
he, if you hear the podcast, he said he has a bone to pick with him and he sees him in heaven or something. He says, he says he was supposed to be there a few days later, and then he passed away. And so he's
Yeah.
like, I didn't get to meet him, but yeah, it's just listening to him, his teaching method and all that. It wasn't that I'm like, oh, I'm going to stop teaching everything the way I do and start teaching it his way, but it was an enlightening moment to listen to his process. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And is it that teaching that you just mentioned, it's about discovering the common thread.
mm,
There's a teaching I picked up over the years, which is, if you put a group of martial arts students from different disciplines in a room, they'll all argue over which martial art is better. But if you put a group of martial arts masters in a room, they'll all discuss the commonalities.
mhm. Yeah, that's
And
amazing.
and I think when you look at Jeet Kune Do, you know, and you start to transcend those teachings, I use this terminology and I call it the universal truth. The commonalities of the universal truths in movement. As Bruce said, you've got two arms, two legs. Unless you've got three arms and four legs, you'll create a new martial art. But
Hmm.
otherwise,
Hmm.
how many different ways can you move these? Two
Right.
pairs of limbs
Yeah. Right.
efficiently. So,
Right.
so it kind of like it gives. The other thing I love about the ones in our group is how it brings life to the philosophy.
Mm.
Now, not everyone's teaching the philosophy directly, and as that's become my kind of key area of focus. But it started to give life to that, and I'm
Yeah.
thankful to the ones in that group. Um, One, that there was not as much emphasis on it as I would have liked, but I could see it,
Yeah.
right? And I could feel it.
Yes.
That dynamic is far greater than the sum of the parts, right? So that breathes life into my work in that space. And that's kind of allowed me to spearhead in that direction, still based on the principles and philosophies and based on the foundations of Jeet Kune Do.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely have a very physical focused class, because I found that a lot of people, especially in this area, won't even exercise at first if you don't start them on it. So I have sort of a kickboxing feel to my class.
Yeah.
But then with a few of them, especially the newer ones, sometimes I'll stop to talk to them about the philosophical sides and some of the things Bruce Lee said. You can see sometimes they have that little question in their eyes, like, "Are we just talking? What's going on? I thought we were supposed to be hitting something." And I told them the other day, I said, "You see pictures of Bruce with a book in his hand in front of his class in Chinatown, where he's like, like a finger, like a teacher, finger in the air and talking,
Yeah.
and it definitely."
I've seen one of those photos as well, and
Yeah.
I look at that, in a nostalgic, way, where, there's definitely, that wisdom, I
Yeah.
kind of, I think you guys are so lucky to be right at the heart of it all, because you've had everyone on your doorstep. So, we've had to go and in a different way, go and find that information. But that wealth of knowledge and wisdom, you know,
Yes.
you could go to someone, whereas we couldn't, just been, another continent apart. So, uh, but this distance didn't change anything. We still brought us together, and here we are.
Yes.
Right.
Exactly.
So there is that aspect of things as well.
Yeah. Yeah. That's something I've been working on, and Dennis and I've been talking about also having segments where we talk about some of the philosophical things that Bruce Lee did and everything. It's something that, as I mentioned to Chris in his interview, I've spoken to people who have been long interested in JKD and Bruce Lee, and when we'd start discussing things about different quotes or whatever, the person's face went blank, or various people, they would just say, "Well, oh, I've never read any of that." And it's just sad. It's not a put down or anything. It's just like, well, too much going on the internet. Maybe there's just so much fight, UFC and boxing and all that you can watch, that people miss out on the beautiful things that he wrote and even drew, things like that. So
It's so
it's
true.
yeah. So, I have at least another question for you, but I wanted to let Vincent get a chance to ask you something before I ask it. If you want to pop on, Vince. You've met Vince. He's in space right now.
Greetings and salutations
From space.
Vince,
from
how you doing?
space.
Nano.
Okay, there we go. That's the direction we're going, folks.
You'll have lost quite a lot of the audience on that one, but
Hey,
Yeah,
those who know
more
know.
we know it.
great to see you again, Lak. I definitely have appreciated the times when you've been able to join us in person and contribute to our seminars, and that's been wonderful. And so currently, what in your teaching, in your curriculum, what core principles do you emphasize in personal practice or in teaching for the martial arts?
Great question, Vince. Great question. Having read some of Bruce Lee's notes and works, the one thing that has never been taught, or I've never been exposed to it in any of the teachings in any of the Jeet Kune Do schools, was the self-actualization side. And that always, sparked, you know, a tenacious curiosity around that. It's like, how do you do that? What is that? And so for me, digging deeper into what Bruce meant by that, what he meant by self-realization, what he meant by self-actualization, and on top of that, not having any body of material to work on towards that, other than the notes that he left behind and his anecdotal notes from books that he read and, you know, jotted down for his own personal reference. There wasn't any kind of process behind that he left behind. And as a consequence, I ended up on my own quest, my own quest for self-actualization. And through my own journey of, you know, going through my own tumultuous times and getting into, you know, quite a low point in my life, I realized I had to get out of that. And to get out of that, I had to cultivate my own self-mastery. And I realized that the process towards self-actualization and or self-realization is to cultivate your own self-mastery. To master, first and foremost, the way we're doing it in the West, is your body. So you can start off by learning to cultivate your fitness through martial arts, through supplementing that with gym training and sports and whatever it might be. And then going on to then cultivating your mind. To cultivate your mind, yes, you're getting some side benefits, some very powerful side benefits from martial arts, but it's not taught directly. So that bugged me out a bit. So I went on a personal development quest. Did loads of courses, loads of trainings, and so on. Spent, you know, tens of thousands of pounds. And then after that, one of my students brought to my attention a book by Dr. Napoleon Hill called Think and Grow Rich. Now, this book was the pivot that changed everything. Now, in this book, I remember reading this book that one of my students in the West London school had recommended. So I read this and I was absolutely hooked on this book. And I came across a definite chief aim. And I was like, whoa, hold on a minute. I've seen this somewhere. I've seen this somewhere before. And that's when I realized, hold on. I've seen this in the tower. Is it the tower Jeet Kune Do? And I started to look and I started to realize and make a connection that your martial mindset, you can cultivate a martial mindset, and that mind set that you have has got such power to change everything, right? And at that moment was born what I now call martial mind power. And martial mind power became this 9-step self-mastery program that's based and inspired on Bruce Lee's martial art and philosophy of Jeet Kune Do. It's agnostic to any martial art style, system, or method, but the principle and the four philosophies of Jeet Kune Do still apply. And during that process, I started to cultivate my own mind. So I went on loads of like personal development training courses and consumed masses of trainings online about how to cultivate your mind. And one of the same student that introduced me to Dr. Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich said, why don't you do neuro-linguistic programming? Because that's, you know, helps you not only cultivate your own mind, but one of the things he was saying as a student was, he goes, because he was an NLP practitioner, and he said, and he'd actually learned from the founder of NLP. And he said, you know what? You're a natural. Whatever you do, you know, whenever I teach something, he goes, oh, you know, you just did a presupposition there, you know, that's, and I thought, like, is that good or is it bad? You know, what are you trying to tell me? He goes, yeah, it's brilliant. You're natural. The way you did that was just brilliant. But what if you could sharpen your sword and to do it specifically on purpose, knowing the science behind it. So I started to go down that road. So another one of our friends, a good friend of mine, mentor, he actually said, you should, why not sharpen your sword so you can, be better at the way you teach. Even though you are natural, you'll be even better at it. So I went down that route. Now this NLP course came with a hypnotherapy add-on, not realizing that NLP is standing waking state hypnosis. And I came out of this week-long course, which cost me several £1,000s, realizing that wow, hypnotherapy and hypnosis is just crazy. I want to know more about this. So immediately I signed up for an instructor in hypnosis. So I'm an instructor in hypnosis as well.
Hmm.
And after I did that, I started to realize, hold on, your mind is much more than this. I'm tapping into a higher dimension. And then I was introduced to, just prior to that, I was introduced to meditation. And my uncle used to frequent this meditation group under this bona fide guru that's based in India. And I ended up getting introduced to the Self-Realization Fellowship, which is based out in California, as you know, with Paramahansa Yoganandaji, and ended up becoming an initiate in Kriya Yoga, became a Kriya Ban. And I started to realize that the mind is a gateway to the body and to the spirit. So I started to then I've started to go on this mad spiritual quest after that. And during that whole process, I was very fortunate to have my own awakening. And through my own awakening, I was able to help others through that process. And this 9-step self-mastery process became a process of cultivating the body, mind, emotion, spirit, or actually leading up to, and how allowing you to then make a decision, all right, how much further do you want to go? And I'd cracked the code on the self-realization part, or the self-actualization part behind Bruce's teachings. And that's where my focus is. I know that's a long way of answering a question, but I think it's important to honor that process in that way so that you can understand how Bruce's teachings in Jeet Kune Do led me to find the solution. And that solution that I found, and that process that I found, that was given to me through my own sufferings in my own lifetime, became a gift. And as they say, once you've discovered your gift, you have an obligation to give it away.
Mm-hmm.
And now I am in the seat of fulfilling the vision, my calling. In 2003, when I was in New York, or should I say in Hoboken, sleeping that night, and I was called to find Bruce Lee's martial art because it will help me get through tough times, but more importantly, it will help others later.
Hmm.
And we're in the later stage of that calling.
Great. Well, so that takes me then to my final big question here, and that is, what is it you are working on now? What are your future goals?
Well, it's not a goal for me, to be fair, but it's to walk the path. In Sanskrit, there's this word called svadharma. This means your true purpose in life. Okay. In Japan, they have a word called ikigai, which means reason for being. In other words, what are you put on this planet to do? Now I've just got to do the doing bit now.
Mm-hmm.
We know how to do it. We just got to go out there and do it. So we have packaged the teachings into a 40-hour video course, and we've been in the process of pre-launching that. And next weekend, we're actually officially launching something called the Martial Mind Power Academy, which is we're offering a practitioner course. So for students that want to go out there and cultivate their self-mastery, they can go sign up for 12-month subscription and practice that self-mastery course in their own time for the comfort of their own home. And the second option is we're offering a licensed certified coaching option where potential coaches, whether you're an existing coach, martial arts instructor, fitness instructor, corporate well-being coach, personal development coach, whichever kind of angle you're coming in at it, can learn and add a new bow to their string using a martial arts movement-based self-mastery program. Or you can be a martial arts student or a student from any walk of life that wants to take on that teaching, but using a martial arts centered approach. So we're launching that next week. We've got a big martial arts show here in Doncaster, which is up in the north of England, next weekend, called the UK Martial Arts Show. And yeah, we're going to be there next week. And yeah, so we're hoping to share these teachings with people. And as I say, we want to create a ripple in the ocean of consciousness by spreading this through as many coaches as we possibly can, as many students. And we'd love to make a positive transformation impact in 1 million students in the next 10 years.
Wow.
So next May 2035, it would be an absolute privilege to have hit that target, if not sooner than that. So that's the soul's mission. That's the soul's mission.
Nice. Well, you know, it's been an honor and just fantastic having you join us today. One thing we have knocked around, so keep everyone that's listening and watching, keep paying attention. We've talked about possibly having an event over in London for the Wednesday night group with Lak, and I would love to make that happen. Sooner rather than later, as we all can still move and stretch and kick and punch.
The clock is ticking.
The clock is ticking. Yeah. So we'll be talking in the background. I'm not pinning Lak down or anything because I know he's got lots going on right this minute. But you've got books out there. Are they available on Amazon?
Yeah. The books, you can go to our website. Am I allowed to share it?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, you can go to martialmindpower.com and you can find all the books on there, or you can go to Amazon. You can find the Martial Mind Power Academy on our website, martialmindpower.com. So yeah, that's really the key site if you want to find anything with the work that we've been doing. Even the live classes you can find from that site as well. So yeah, we've been trying to do as much as we can. We've published 4 books since 2016. So yeah, and I wouldn't have been able to do that without being inspired by all you guys. So thank you.
Awesome. Dennis, were you trying to talk there muted?
Yes.
So I even missed that one.
Anything you needed to say there, Mr.
No, it's okay. No. It's gone. The thought's gone.
Yeah, that's okay. We'll bring it up in the next podcast. This was a nice, long, and interesting podcast. It may go into 2 episodes once I play it back. That's okay, because we love when it happens when friends get together. We don't want to just cut short and say, we hit the time, So thanks.
Well, that's why we're talking about doing an episode that kind of will probably run long. We haven't talked about it in detail, but like the ethos idea that I was talking about, to where we can bring, like Octavio and Chris and everyone together to have a whole hour or more just on the JKD philosophy and how it applies to Pan, everything. So yeah.
Yes. Yeah. For those of you listening, post your comments. Let us know. I collect all the comments. If you're having trouble commenting on the podcast themselves, jkdjeremy@gmail.com is my email where I collect the comments if you have issues. Otherwise, you can comment on YouTube where you're watching. And but if you like that idea, we're going to do it anyway. But just let us know. Just let us know if you like that idea. We're still going to do it. Dennis will not be pushed around.
You can either watch it or not. It's okay.
Yeah, by public. No, it sounds fantastic. I think it's a great idea because, again, you know, the experience we had with Chris, I mean, it would be awesome for Lak to and Octavio and all these guys. So, and Dennis is working on getting another great individual, and we have a few more exciting guests coming up. Thanks again, Lak, for joining us. Sifu Lak Loi, everyone, and we will see you next time.
All right.